Breaking Bad is one of the most revered shows ever made and is genuinely one of my favorite shows of all time, if not my favorite. Everything from the acting to the writing to the incredible character arcs, Breaking Bad is a masterclass from beginning to end, and is a must-watch for anyone who's even remotely interested in TV or movies in general. It's also excellent to see they kept that same momentum with the masterful Better Call Saul as well, which just ended. So kind of in honor of that, today I'm going to be ranking the characters of Breaking Bad from best to worst. For those of you who don't know how a tier list works, I'll be going down the line and rating each of these characters between S and D. S being incredible and D being, well, bad. I'll be going in no particular order here, but without further delay, let's get right into this. So first we're going to be starting off with one of the staple characters of the entire show, Jesse Pinkman, played by Aaron Paul. It's a tragic and incredible character arc which what starts off as a sort of deadbeat high school student evolves into this really well-defined and sympathetic character. And it's really awesome to see the kind of direction that they went with him, because what starts off and you judge the book by a cover type thing, he's a deadbeat, he's a high school student, doesn't have much going for himself, seems like a hard head, and can be kind of like stupid at times as well, at least comparatively to Walter White, of course, which is like a genius in his own right. But this character ends up being very loving and a very sympathetic character, which I really liked, and he would be the last person on paper that you would imagine would be like that. So it's almost like him and Walter White reverse roles as the show goes on. Aaron Paul does a fantastic job as Jesse Pinkman. He totally encompasses the role. You can't see anyone else playing that character, and he just makes it throughout. There's so much ranges of emotion throughout his character, and it's just ultimately it's such an amazing character. So with that being said, though, Jesse Pinkman can be annoying at times. He can be a little obnoxious here and there, and he has his faults, but ultimately I'm going to be putting him up A+. I know he's teetering on an S, but for me personally, I'm going to be putting him as a very high A. Next, we have Ted Beneke, played by Christopher Cousins. What can we say about Ted? Not so vital in the role. His main role in the show is to sort of divide Skylar and Walter as the show goes on. Again, he doesn't play much of a role. He's a bit forgettable. The actor plays very well. Christopher Cousins does a very good job. But ultimately, there's not much to be said about Ted Beneke other than his role in the show. Without him, I mean, the show would still progress in a different way, but ultimately not that big of a character, so I'm going to be putting him as a C here, C-. And next, a fan favorite, Hank Shrader, played by Dean Norris. What an awesome character. He plays the brother-in-law of Walter White. Talk about having the enemy right at your doorstep, having dinner with him without even realizing who this monster is in front of you. Dean Norris does an excellent job. Again, can't see anyone else playing this role. And another really heartbreaking story. He was just trying to do the right thing, and throughout the entire show, the character of Hank Shrader stays to his morals. Yeah, he can be obnoxious, but honestly, I found the character to be hilarious throughout, but also very caring. And in those final moments, it's just really heartbreaking to see how much he's been betrayed, and the fact that he goes so deep into trying to find Walter White that he ends up losing his life for it. Hank Shrader is just an all-around very good character. He is a staple of the series, just excellent overall. And again, Dean Norris knocks it out of the park, absolutely. I love Hank Shrader as a character. I am going to be putting him up there at S tier, of course. And then next up, we have Gomi, Hank Shrader's partner in crime here, played by Stephen Michael Quezada. Sorry if I butchered your name there. Gomi, again, I liked Gomi. Similar to Ted, they don't really show much of him. Doesn't really have a vital role in there, but his interactions with Hank are very funny. They add humor to the show. And again, really sad to see him go. He also seemed very sort of a straight shooter when it came to his morals, similar to Hank as well. They both kind of shared that brotherhood, the brotherly kind of partners throughout the show. Doesn't have a huge role, but I did like the character from when I saw of him. So for that reason, I'm going to be putting him on the B tier here. Then next we have Badger, played by Matt Jones. Badger is one of two sort of sidekicks to Jesse Pinkman. Again, not much to say about Badger. He is pretty much absent throughout the show, but he a bit of an idiot type role. You know, they're not super smart, him and Skinny Pete, which I'll get to in a moment as well. But they aren't the most intelligent bunch in the group at all. And they sort of just act as Jesse's partners in crime. They help throughout, especially later on in the show, near season 5 and season 4. They have their moments where they sort of help out. But as far as characters go, there's not much progression. They kind of stay the same throughout. Badger and Skinny Pete are both there to sort of add comic relief and sort of humanize some of the stuff that they're doing, because even they are inexperienced in that realm. But yes, they do help out throughout. But ultimately, the character is nothing more than a bit of comic relief. So I'm going to be putting Badger at the C tier next to Ted. And next is one of my favorite characters in the show, Gus Fring, played by the incredible Giancarlo Esposito. Gus is the definition of an incredible villain. On the surface is this very neatly well put together man, but behind it is an absolutely genius and methodical villain. That is the counterpart to Walter White. Probably one of my favorite aspects of Breaking Bad as a whole is this sort of chess match between Walter White and Gus Fring. He's an absolute mastermind, and Giancarlo Esposito plays him to a T, totally composed throughout the show, emotionless, very smart, very tactical throughout the show. Everything the way he commands the screen, you can't help but be glued to him. He's the one person in the show that actually can get to Walter White. He can get under his skin. He has this front that he puts on as the owner and creator of Los Pollos Hermanos, which of course is a front for his meth business in the side with the drug cartel, of course. But as this front, you totally believe him. He has a friendly demeanor, you know, he has great hospitality. He's just a manager, right? There's nothing behind him. But talk about judging a book by its cover, because everything that he does behind the scenes is just incredible. And I love how they even show his backstory as well. He has an excellent backstory. You feel for him. They make you feel for Gus Fring. And it's almost it's easy to forget that is he the villain? It depends on who you ask, right? He's one of those people that's willing to go any distance to protect his empire that he's put together, and he's not going to let anybody stand in his way. Gus Fring is definitely one of my favorite characters, hands down. Just I could go all day praising the character and praising Giancarlo Esposito's acting. But I'm going to obviously be putting Gus Fring at the S tier, high S tier. Next is the before-mentioned Skinny Pete, played by Charles Baker. Again, this is the second part of the duo I discussed earlier. The sort of sidekicks to Jesse Pinkman. We got Skinny Pete and Badger. Again, Skinny Pete, pretty much identical things I would say about him that I said about Badger. There for comic relief, doesn't add a whole lot, doesn't have much progression, not the smartest character, but you know, is there to just do his role, and he shows up here and there. You know, there's not much to say about Skinny Pete, so I will be putting him next to his brother here. Not really actually his brother, but you know, on the C tier. Next we have Skylar, played by Anna Gunn. This is a very interesting character. I remember how much hate she was getting, how people really despised her character and her progression, and there's a lot of things that she does and a lot of things about her character progression that I can totally understand that they're not great. While she is with Walter White, and everything that Walter White does after a certain point around season 4 or season 3, depending on who you ask, is just horrible. No wife or spouse in general should have to go through that. And it's a masterclass in how the writing sort of totally changes a character from being a loving wife and a mother. And you just see her change throughout, and she starts to make mistakes. And Anna Gunn does an excellent job. Amazing actress. Just absolutely incredible, especially in season 5. And the emotional scenes just blew it out of the water. I get chills thinking about Ozymandias and that scene, you know, in the house when Walt takes the baby. It's just, she plays it to a T. As a character, I think she's a great character. Honestly, it's realistic, and the fact that everybody hates her, right? They hate the character. That's a testament to not only the acting but the writing as well, because they take this house, they take this wife, a mother, and just totally change her on her side. She starts to not take it anymore. She decides, I'm not going to do it anymore, and she makes mistakes along the way, and she finally decides, at the end, that's it. It's no more. So I really like Skylar as a character. Honestly, very well written, very well acted. I'm going to be putting Skylar at A. Next, we have Walter Jr., played by R.J. Mitte. Again, he'll be most known for his breakfast memes and stuff like that. Ultimately, you gotta respect Walter Jr. He is the son of Walter White, has cerebral palsy. Essentially plays ultimately a minor role throughout the show, but you learn to like Walter Jr. He's part of the family. You feel bad for him sometimes that he's just, things aren't going his way all the time, and his father has cancer, right? And just dealing with that and seeing how Walter Jr. sort of progresses as that kind of character until the end, and basically just seeing your house, your family fall apart. It's, as far as characters are concerned, it's a horrible situation to be in, right? And I think that R.J. Mitte does a really good job throughout the show. There are some parts that, it could have been better, right? Comparatively, he's not as good of an actor. But ultimately, that's not saying that he's not a good actor, though, throughout the show, just comparatively. Honestly, Walter Jr. doesn't play a huge role, but I like him. I like the character. I think it adds to the show. I think it adds this sort of youth to it as well, and just shows you a good in-depth look at how the entire family is affected by Walter White is doing to the family. So I think I'm going to put Walter Jr. at the B tier here. A low B tier. Next, we have a man of few words, Hector Salamanca, played by Margolis. I've seen him around. He's a really good actor, actually. He's been in a lot of movies, but in this particular show, he has no words other than one flashback. The rest are just very angry looks and the infamous clicking of his little bell that he has on his wheelchair. He's an old man, he's a dying man, but a very sinister man as well for everything that he's done as far as being part of the cartel. As I'm sure this guy has a kill count of hundreds of people throughout his career. So, he's a mysterious character, and the role he plays, the way he's written, it's more so what the character represents rather than the actual execution. There's not much dialogue, but he plays such a vital role because at the end of the day, he is the reason why Gus ends up dying. It's about revenge. It's about Gus trying to take vengeance on him throughout the show, and that's what ends up being the demise of Gus Fring in the end. The one loophole of getting to him was Hector Salamanca, and how fitting it would be that he would be the one to kill Gus Fring after all that. But I'm going to be rating it off of not so much the acting, rarely. This is in a rare case where I'm actually going to be rating it on the character and its role in the show, right? So, Hector Salamanca, I'm going to be putting him at the B+ tier. I think he adds a lot to the show, and it's humorous. You shouldn't laugh at it, but it is funny, the whole, with the bell, he's always clicking it. I've seen a lot of memes and stuff like that about it, but I do like the character. There's something funny about him, honestly. But, in the flashback, it's nothing but funny, what he does to Gus and his partner. Next, we have Jane, played by Krysten Ritter. This is the short moment in the show where Jesse has a girlfriend here and someone he actually really loves throughout. And she kind of opens a different side of Jesse. You can really tell that they were in love, right? And Krysten Ritter does a really good job at kind of being this mysterious sort of goth girl, but ultimately really just is used to show more of Jesse's side. And it's absolutely heartbreaking when she does overdose, and the impact that it has on Jesse. After that, he's never the same, and it's a tragic scene, and you hate Walt for it, but it totally changes Jesse, his trajectory. I liked her character. She was very sort of serious, you know. Krysten Ritter did a really good job, and the short time that she's there, you do like her in the show, and how she interacts with Jesse, and it's believable, and there's chemistry is there. So I'm going to be putting Jane at the B tier here. A low B tier, but still B. Next is Lydia, played by Laura Fraser. So, honestly, I thought that this character was extremely annoying. She shows up in Season 5, and the role that she plays is a major one in Season 5, for sure. But she's totally stuck up. She's very annoying. She's supposed to be annoying. It's a testament to Laura Fraser's acting in this case, because she's absolutely... It's just an insubordinate character, honestly. You see her on the screen, and she's just annoying, honestly. I found her very annoying, but she doesn't overall play a huge role as far as the whole show goes. Again, she played a role in Season 5, yes, but as a whole, she really only shows up in that one season, and she just ends up dying at the end, and pretty forgettable overall. You know, I remember how annoying she could be, but again, not a super well fleshed out character, and you don't really care about her very much. So I'm going to be putting her at the C tier. Next we have Marie, played by Betsy Brandt, the wife of Hank Shrader in the show. What to say about Marie? She also doesn't play a vital role in the show. You feel bad for her. You know, especially at the end there, she has one last conversation with Hank. But she is the comic relief. She's kind of like that crazy aunt type that you see in shows. And, you know, though the interactions that she has with Skylar and the interactions she has with Hank, they're funny. You know, she adds a bit of humor to the show as well, overall. And she's a very good actress as well. So she pulls it off, you know. But ultimately, again, when you think of Breaking Bad, you're not going to think of Marie. And, you know, as far as her writing goes, her arc is not a huge one, you know. But still, I think it's a respectable character. I will be putting her on the C tier as well. And next we have a fan favorite, Saul Goodman, played by the great Bob Odenkirk. Saul Goodman, you know, at first... When I saw him, you know, I saw the show for the first time. I've seen the show twice already, 2.5 times, rather, I should say. And I've seen all of Better Call Saul, minus the last season. Yes, I know. I'm going to be catching up on that very soon. So when I first saw him, the first time around when I was watching the show, I thought he was a very good character. You know, I thought he was very smart, amazing salesman, super witty, really slimy, you know, very, like, untrustworthy, right? You know, you don't know what this guy's doing, but he's always up to something, right? He's one of those kind of characters. But played amazingly by Bob Odenkirk throughout. Total salesman, right? He could talk his way out of anything. And, you know, after seeing it first time around, I always liked the character, but I never gave him the credit that he deserved. But seeing it the second time, I found him so funny, and just a testament to the writing, because he is such an incredibly well-rounded character. And, you know, I'm being a little biased because I will say that watching Better Call Saul gives me a completely new respect, even more of a respect for the character. As you see his origins and you see how well that show's written, it gives a whole nother layer to Saul Goodman. So I absolutely think the character's amazing. It was a great character to do a spin-off show of. He's entertaining, he's witty, super well written, really well acted. Bob Odenkirk is Saul Goodman. You can't see anybody else playing him. He is Saul Goodman. And again, the trajectory he has on the show, he plays a vital role throughout. He's one of the reasons why they are able to do what they're doing. In this case, I'm talking about Walter and Jesse and Gus and everybody. They're able to continue doing what they're doing because of him. He is the criminal lawyer. And because of that, I am going to be putting him up at a high S tier, of course. Next, we have Mike Ehrmantraut, played by Jonathan Banks. Absolutely love this character. Again, a whole new respect after watching Better Call Saul. You see his progression in that. But besides that, even if I hadn't seen Better Call Saul, Mike is such an incredible character as well. He's a total badass. He's old, but his looks should not fool you because this guy is so smart in the head, super well written, and one of the more tragic deaths in the show because of how unnecessary it is and how the circumstance that he's in, his granddaughter, just seeing the emotional impact that it's probably going to have on her. Just a really tragic death through and through. And you could tell Walter White, seeing what he's done, and there's no going back. All Mike wants is to just die peacefully. But he's such a stand-up guy. This is the type of character or guy that you would want on your team. He is the cleaner. He is the head honcho of a lot of things. And without Mike, a lot of the show, a lot of the things that they do would not be able to be done. He's a master at what he does. He's a criminal, but he's a man with a heart as well. They give him a heart. He's not ruthless. He's not cold. He's human. Just unlike some of the other characters in the show that are completely heartless, he has a heart. And seeing him pick sides and just navigate through everything that's going on and do it with a cool, composed head, you can't help but see how cool Mike is as a character. You can't do anything but respect him. Just excellent. I love the character. I'm going to be putting him as well on the S tier. And the penultimate person here is Tuco Salamanca. What a crazy character, played by Raymond Cruz. I like Tuco. He's his cocaine-induced personality, he's just crazy. But his character is high energy, really well written as well. I keep saying that, but again, I mean, every single character in the show is totally well thought out. But Tuco is the first sort of villain, first cartel leader that we come across, and plays a major role in the Salamanca family, right? How crazy is he? Sporadic. You have no idea what he's going to do next. And that's what makes him intimidating. And that's the first foe that Walter White has to combat, right? And finally, again, Hank ends up killing him. But that whole scene where they're out in the desert and Walter and Jesse are out there having lunch with him and his grandma, I believe. It's entertaining. It's so entertaining to watch him do his thing. I think Tuco is a really good character, honestly. But again, he dies after, I think it's season 1 or 2. I think season 2 is when he dies. So, there's not much to say after that about him. But I do like the character a lot. Because of his role in the show isn't being that big, I would say that I would put Tuco at a B+, a high B. And finally, how could we forget the main star of the show here, Walter White, played by Bryan Cranston. Right off the bat, I'm just going to say, probably one of the greatest performances I've ever seen as far as acting is concerned. It's a total Olympic level quality of acting here. Just every single range of emotion played to perfection. And I, using the word perfect, nothing's perfect, but this is the closest thing to it. Bryan Cranston blows it out of the water. Walter White is such a sophisticated, yet such a complex and amazingly written character. The whole idea, quoting Vince Gilligan when he said he wanted to make Mr. Rogers into Scarface. Just that idea and how there's way more to him than meets the eye, and he turns his life around. And what begins as sort of this empathetic journey to set his family up and cure his cancer, be able to pay his bills because he can't pay his bills for the cancer treatment. You feel bad for him. One of the greatest pilots that the show has, for sure, hands down, compared to all other shows. It's a great pilot. You feel for him. You feel really bad for Walter White. He's down in the dumps. He's a high school teacher, chemistry teacher. So smart, yet he's being paid a fraction of what all his colleagues are being paid, right? And he's just a teacher, but he's so talented. And he has a family, and he's dying of cancer. What is the legacy that he's left behind, right? That's one of the main things that continues to be a driving force in his life. And at the end of the day, Walter White ends up becoming one of the biggest villains that there is in the show. From this guy that you're rooting for, how cleverly they're able to sort of make you start to change your mind about him. As the show goes on, your season 4, season 5, you start to question, should I still be rooting for Walter White? Right? That makes you question that. He's an anti-hero. What begins as somebody that's doing this out of moral reasons, he ends up doing it for himself. He's selfish. He kills so many people throughout the show, including kids, all for his own gain, all to stay up on top of the game and not have his gig be totally given up, right? And it cost him. It cost him his family. It cost him the life of his brother-in-law and just so many other people around him. And he just becomes this toxic force, this Radianite, right? But with that being said, Walter White, as much as you hate him, as much as you love him, he is one of the greatest written characters in TV history, in my opinion. Excellent. S++++. Love it. Just absolutely love it. But here's my tier list. There was a couple of characters that they were missing, but of course we all know that Heel would be in the S tier for sure, if you're wondering. But with all that being said, please let me know below, what do you think of the tier list? What do you think of Breaking Bad? I'd love to hear you guys, how you disagree, how you agree with this list. Who would you have put in the S tier instead of me, right? I'd love to hear it. Let me know below. And if you want to stay up to date with our latest tier lists, movie reviews, movie features, please make sure to subscribe and hit that notification button. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the flip.